And the last thing I want to talk to you about are just a few objections that can come up with regarding the virus. So one thing is that it's very likely that you might end up getting a prospect on the phone or exchange emails with them, and they're shut down. I mean, imagine selling to restaurants, and it's very likely you could end up on the phone with a prospect, and they use this objection to get rid of you. I mean, it's pretty easy, right? Well, no reason for us to talk to you, Mr. or Mrs. Salesperson. We're currently shut down. Here's a way to reply to that. Oh, I understand, and I want you to know I'm actually not trying to sign you up for anything or sell you anything at this difficult time. I'm simply trying to open the dialogue between our two companies. While you all are shut down, are you available for a brief conversation to discuss how we are? And then you could insert your value proposition. You could even insert your value proposition that's tailored to the pandemic. You could say, are you available for a brief conversation where we could discuss how we are working with small businesses and helping them to deal with the pandemic by creating more profitability and improving their cost structure? The way we, and then moving on to the last sentence here in the response, that way once we get back to normal and you all open back up, you can know who we are and how we can help. So I refer to this as kind of a deflection. You're deflecting to your sales process, because if you recall, a couple slides ago I went through the sales process, and the sales process is not to sell the product right now when you're doing prospecting. Your sales process is just to sell the conversation. So this objection response is just deflecting back to your sales process, and you're just educating the prospect that you're not trying to sell to them, especially not with them being shut down and with the virus and everything like that. But this could be a time for you to at least have a conversation. And while you fully anticipate that they're not going to buy from you, and that's okay, when they open back up and when life gets back to normal, you guys can pick back up. And so you're educating them on that process. And so this is by the way, there's a whole webinar training module recording on YouTube on dealing with objections, and the same approach is used in normal times. It's modified a bit here with a few words just to tailor it to the pandemic. But the logic is that the fact that they're shut down is definitely a reason for them not to buy your product or service, but it's not a reason not to talk. In fact, the state of them being shut down makes it almost a great time to talk if you're really selling the conversation, because they're probably more available now than during regular times, or when everything is all good, when their business is operating at 100%. Now, I wouldn't use that as my objection response, which is, oh, but you have time now because you're shut down, so we should talk. So you're not trying to overcome them and talk them into talking to you, but you can educate them on, I'm not selling anything, just looking to have a conversation. Hey, we'll keep it brief, and this way, when you do get back to life as normal, you can know who we are and how we can help. A slightly different objection that you should be prepared for, because of the economic hit that a lot of businesses are experiencing, is we don't have budget or money right now. This comes up anyways when times are good, and you might be prepared to face this more frequently now. So this response is very similar to what I just shared with you, and the key to understanding really how to memorize this response and also turn it into your own words is to understand the logic that these words are wrapped around. And the logic is, again, the fact that they don't have budget or money is not a reason to not have a conversation. It's a reason for them not to buy from you, but your goal is not to sell to them. Your goal is just to have a conversation because you're selling the meeting. So you can deflect in the same way, and this one is modified just a little bit because of the objection, but they said, we don't have any budget right now because of the pandemic. We're barely, trying to stay alive. hey, I understand, and to be honest, I want you to know I'm not trying to sign you up or sell you anything here today. We are just looking to open the dialogue between our two companies. Are you available for just a brief conversation to discuss how we've helped some other small businesses to decrease the cost of goods sold? Trust me, we'll keep in mind that you don't have budget to spend, and we won't spend too much of anybody's time. Not only not spend too much of your time, we won't spend too much of our time because we know that you do not have budget right now. But if we can at least have a brief conversation, that way when your budget opens back up and becomes more available, you can know who we are and how we can help. Is that fair? Can we put a brief call in the calendar? Another objection, and again, these objections come up normally, but you're likely to get the objection of we're just focused on the pandemic right now, or we're just focused on trying to stay alive. Call me in 6 months and maybe that will be a better time to talk, right? You typically, when a prospect gives you this objection, they are thinking that your goal is to try to sell your product. And either they don't think that they'll ever want your product and they're just trying to kick the can down the road and get rid of you, or they genuinely think in 6 months it will be a better time for me to buy your product. But remember, the sales process, we're not trying to sell the product, we're trying to sell the conversation. So typically, the fact that they want you to call back in 6, 10, 12 months, which is a better time for them to buy your product, is not in line with what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to have a conversation. So a response to that could be, hey, I understand and I want you to know I'm actually not reaching out to try to sign you up for anything or sell you anything, especially during this difficult time. I'm simply trying to open the dialogue between our two companies. Are you available for a brief conversation where we can discuss how we've helped some other businesses to stay alive during the pandemic and the economic downturn? That way, when in 6 months or when you're ready to when you're more available or whatever the reason is for you to call them back, you can include that. That way, when you are more clear on your business future, you can then know who we are and how we can help, and then we can pick discussions back up. Then, how does that sound? Are you free for a brief conversation?